class, the receiving school students and teachers. How are you all this morning?
We are very well, thank you. And how are you this morning?
I'm very well, just like you all. Thank you. You may be seated. Now let's have a look once more at our theme for the lessons we are having, especially the introduction lessons, where it says helping others to help themselves. Helping others to help themselves. Shane, if you can tell us briefly what you think of that theme. Helping others to help themselves.
My understanding, we help others, so it makes it easier for them to do their stuff.
Very good, thank you. Now, our previous lesson, we had a look at the introduction of all the strands, sub-strands, the outcomes, and I just want us to go quickly through those strands and sub-strands. Let's have Carol to tell us what the strands and the sub-strands are, if you can give us all of them. The strand and the sub-strands.
The strand is community development, and the three strands are knowing communities, communication, and community project.
Good, thank you. So we have the strand, once again, class and receiving students, the strand, community development, the sub-strands, communication, knowing communities, and community projects. Now, our actual topic on this lesson is community projects. If I can have someone from the class to tell us what community projects are, or what are community projects? Violet, if you can tell us what community projects are.
Projects held in a community.
Okay, good. Anybody else who would like to add more to what Violet has said about community projects? Anybody else? Thank you, Riku.
An event happening that brings about changes in a community.
Very good, thank you. An event or happening that takes place in a community to bring about, that brings changes in a community, and that also helps to improve the standard of living or improve the way people live in a community. Our lesson activity will be actually on a guest speaker. And our guest speaker, receiving school students and teachers, our guest speaker is from the National Capital District Commission. And that's her name. But I will have her to introduce herself once it's time for her to come on. Now, lesson activity. There are a couple of things that you have to take note. Now, our guest speaker may not be able to talk about what you can see on the screen, teachers in the receiving schools and students, but probably there will be some areas that she will touch on. So if she is not able to touch on some of what is expected, like roles and responsibilities of the organization that she represents, and others, I would like you teachers in the receiving schools, if you could make that as extra work or say homework for your students to try to find out themselves from where you live, the province you live, where they can try to find out some organizations and organizations in the province, where they can also try to find out the roles and responsibilities of certain organizations that exist in the provinces where you are. And a reminder, class and students in the receiving schools, take note of whatever you feel that is necessary when you have a guest speaker speaking. And this is because we will be having a follow-up lesson. And as usual, you know very well, after we have guest speakers, we always have a follow-up lesson that tries to recap, for us to recap back to what we hear from our guest speakers as usual. And with that, I would like to welcome our guest speaker, Mrs. Jane Cook.
Good morning, class, receiving school, and teachers.
Good morning, Mrs. Jane Cook.
You may be seated. My name is Jane Cook, and I work for the National Capital District Commission. I am a community development officer by profession, and I am also the coordinator of the women's programs in the National Capital District. I will tell you what community development is, and maybe I could also tell you what we do in the community. Now, many of you have, of course, heard about community development. Community development is a grassroots profession that is concerned with the positive development of all people in the community we live in. Community development professionals in NCD and in other parts of the country, in Papua New Guinea, do a wide range of activities, but at the core it involves supporting the activities of the community sector in order to increase the quality of life and well-being of the communities. Community development is also about providing people with opportunities to participate in their own communities, build networks, and contribute to the community in which they live. Community development work is not that easy. When you work in a community, you don't just go one day at one time and learn all about what people do in the community or how they live or the problems that they face. Community development is a 24 hours work because you have to fit yourself into people's situations. You have to sit with them and have dialogue with them long hours. And sometimes, in many cases, people like me have to give up my own time to be with the communities. And when you go into a community, you are a stranger there. People are always very suspicious of strangers in their own communities. And if it is your first time in the community, people ask questions. Who is he? Or who is she? Or what is she doing here? What is she gonna do? And many times people in the community, when they see a new face, they have very high expectations in many cases. They think like, so I think they are here to help us. Yeah, you are there to help them, but you have to learn from them. You have to sit with them and get to know them better. You have to have them have that trust in you. First step you take when you go into a community is you have to get to know that community. That's first and foremost. And I want you people to write that down. Get to know your community. Step 2 that we do in working with communities is we work out community needs. That's number 2. Number 3 is we decide, after knowing their needs, we decide what to do first. Okay. Step 4 we take is we plan how to do it, but together with the community. And step 5, we take action together again with the communities. And of course, step number 6, we do evaluation. How did we do it? How well did we do it? Were we successful? Did we come across any problems? What can we do to improve on those problems? Now, those are major 6 steps that community development workers do in the community. Okay. When you are new in a community, you go in a community and you don't know anyone there. Okay? You don't know anyone there, and you go to identify how many leaders and which are the leaders in the community. Now, this is very important, students. You have to identify the leaders in the community. You may have a pastor there, he is a leader. You may have a youth leader, a woman leader, or maybe a landlord, or maybe a traditional chief. You go to identify all these leaders together. Okay? Once you identify the leaders, you work with, I say again, you work with these leaders. Not just 1 or 2 leaders that you have identified, but all of the leaders that you have identified in the community. Do you know why? Do you know why it is important to work with these identified leaders? Do you know why it is important? Yes? The young lady over there. Can you speak up, please?
Through them, we will know their communities.
Sorry, I cannot get you, sir.
Through them, we will know their communities.
So?
Through them, we will know their communities.
Yes, good. Yeah, through them, you will know their communities. What else is important to work with the leaders? What else? Why should you work with all these leaders and not just 1 or 2? Yes?
To know the community's needs.
Yes, good. Yes, so you will know the community needs, yeah. But there is something that is lacking. I want to know why it is important for us to work with these leaders, identified leaders. Why is it very, very important? Well, I'll tell you why. Okay. Like I said from the beginning, community development work is not that easy. Okay. Say, for example, I go into let me see, Untitled Settlement. Talai is in Mosby South. Untitled Settlement, I'm going in there and I am new there. I don't know nobody there. Okay, I've gone in there and I started to look around, and it's not just one day that I may be going again, and maybe a month or so. I've got to identify all the leaders. Now I've identified the pastor, the magistrate, the peace officer, the woman leader, the youth leader, and traditional landlord, and maybe another traditional chief who is residing in that. Now it is important that you work with all these leaders, because if you are trying to start a relationship with the community and you are there to maybe do a community project, and you will only work with these 3 or 5 leaders, and you are not working alone with these other leaders, you know what they're going to do? They are going to create what we say in community development terms faction. They're going to create faction, so you will have a divided community. Some are for these leaders, and some are for these leaders. You understand what I say? Okay? You understand why? Why it is important to work with leaders? It is important for you to identify them and work with. Again, I say work with them and through them to reach the community that you are trying to enter. Okay? Once you have established that relationship with the leaders of the community, then first thing they might do is they will call the community together. And I mentioned the steps there. Those are the steps that we're supposed to do. But always remember, when you leave this school and you go and maybe you will become a social worker someday, those are the steps that you should take. But make sure community development is working with with the people. Community development, I repeat, is working with the people and not for the people. Don't get everything mixed up. Okay? Once you have identified your leaders, and once you have close contact with the community through the leaders, maybe you will have meetings and you will plan, like we said here, you will work out the needs that they have. And you put all those needs in order of priority. Mind you, when you go into a community, there will be many, many needs. They will say, oh, we don't have school, we don't have a health clinic, we don't have water supply, we don't have street light. So you sit with the people and the leaders and decide which of these needs that they have identified is important and put them in order of priority, which one you're supposed to tackle. So if you think that you go in a community and there is no water supply and there is no street lights, you go a long way to get water. Then what is the most important need in the community? Water. Because they have to walk long distances to fetch water, that means water supply will be your priority. What else do you think would be important? Now you think, put yourself in a community. Water supply, because they have to walk long way to fetch water. So water is important. So the people will decide in the community that when you need water, who do you go to? Edaranu? Yes, of course. But then in NCD, you have also planned settlements and unplanned settlements, okay? Now, planned settlements, you have all the services. You have water supply, you have maybe clinic, you have street lights, roads, you have school. But then what happens in areas where there is unplanned settlement? Now, unplanned settlement, what do you have in unplanned settlement? Anyone knows? I'll tell you later which ones are unplanned settlements. Unplanned settlements, you don't have any services at all. There are no proper roads, no street lights, no roads, no schools, but you have buildings there that people live in. Now, in many cases in NCD, unplanned settlements are land belonging to the state, but mostly to the landlords, which are the Motukoitabuans. They are the custodians of the land. Okay, you will find that in unplanned settlement, you have people, a lot of people living there. You have more unplanned settlements in NCD. We have 26 planned settlements, and we have more than 50 unplanned settlements. Okay, you have to differentiate between what is a planned settlement and unplanned settlement. Kilahoskem, how many of you know Kilahoskem? Okay, Talai, Gorobi, Morata, 9 Mile, those are planned settlements. And Koki, Wanigela settlement. Unplanned settlement, let me give you an example. Unplanned settlement is, there are many of them. Ragamuga, 2.5 Mile, Rabiakini, Vada Vada, okay. Sorry? Badilikenu settlement, those are but few of the unplanned. Taikone, those are unplanned settlements. Excuse me. You'll find that, mind you, in some cases, in unplanned settlement, there are some roads there and maybe street lights and maybe some other, maybe water supply. Do you know why? Why do we have some of this? We may find water supply in an unplanned settlement. Anybody knows? That is because the landlord has said, okay, he has to write a letter, an agreement between him and the settlers, and they go to Edaranu and the landlord will say, I allow water supply to go in there. But in many cases, this doesn't happen, and many people in the unplanned settlement, they have illegal connections. So we have two sets of settlements in the city, unplanned and planned settlements. Okay, when people in the community want to have water supply, they just don't say, you go and see Edaranu. No. They have to talk about it properly. They have to select a spokesperson. Okay? If it's an unplanned settlement, the landowner must say, okay, you can pull the water pipes through. You can go to Edaranu and he must give the letter of approval to the settlers there to take to Edaranu so that they can have water supply. And it is also best to do it legally, you see, because if you bring in illegal connections to an unplanned settlement, later on when Edaranu finds out, you will have a lot of problems in your hands. Okay, so in settlement communities, they have a lot of needs, but they have to put them in order of priority and tackle one by one. Maybe they have done something, and then maybe they said, like, maybe also we need street lights because it is very dark to walk around in the night. So maybe their second priority may be street lights. Street lights. Community development is working together. I'll give you an example. Some years ago when settlements were new and I was working in communities, and I had doctors going in, the clinic sisters would go in to a settlement. Killer House Camp was my pilot settlement. NCDC was going in, it was known as City Council, Lands Department, and the Housing Commission. In a community development process, we play this integrated approach. We work together and coordinate together. Because sometimes you go in today, and someone else go in tomorrow, and another department goes in the next day. We bring confusion to the community. So it is wise and best to work with other departments together. We network, and we don't work, community development, you don't work in isolation. You have to reach out to others, because I do not know everything. The housing officer may not know everything. The doctor may not know, he will be only restricted to the area of training that he has gone through. We were working together in Killer House Camp. That time Killer House Camp did not have any street lights. There were no proper roads, no proper blocks, no water supply. But working together make them realize how important it was working together. And we also found out, I especially found out that I would go in during the daytime, and especially I would only meet the women, and their husbands were not around. And by then I have identified who the leaders were. But then we thought of bringing this idea of family planning in the community, because then family planning was coming in Papua New Guinea, how to plan our families. And we would go again and again and again, and we were not being successful in this particular issue. We had plenty of people, and people got up and say, who the hell are you to come and tell us how many children we will have, and so forth. And so we were going in, but we were not breaking down that barrier. You know what I'm talking about? This is also a community development term. You have to break down those barriers. Now I'm telling you this so that you will know how it is like. You just cannot go in a community and say everything is nice the next day. No. You have to have a lot of dialogue, interaction with the communities. You have to sit down with them and let them tell you what they want, not you telling them what you want them to do. But in this particular issue, the issue was family planning. And the nurses were trying to tell them, it is good for you to have small children. But you know, Papua New Guineans, they want big families. Okay? We went again and again and again and again and again till we were sick. We were not breaking down that barrier. And sometimes, I don't know about my friends, but I came away discouraged. And I said, oh, I don't want to go again. But then I sat and then I thought, Papua New Guinea is a subsistence farming country, okay? We work in our gardens and back in the rural areas. So there was an Australian man who was in charge of the quarantine station at Kilahos Camp, beside Kilahos Camp, DPI. Okay, I went and I asked this gentleman if he could give me some pawpaw trays. And these pawpaw trays were planted in, pawpaws were planted, seedlings were planted in seedling trays. Some were very close together, okay, but some were well spaced. So I brought these trays, and my friends, maybe when they looked at me, they thought I was a stupid person to bring on the tray, because it was not an agriculture day, because we had Didi Man with us too. And after we talked about the family planning issue, and now it was after hours, because now the husbands were home and we could sit with them. And after they got up and said, that time they didn't speak pidgin that time, they only spoke Motu. I buy ura lassi. I am my ura. We want to have big family, we can have. And doctor said, that's okay, you can have. Doctor said, that's okay, you can have 5, 6, as many children we want. But we want you to have your wife to gain that strength, to have enough spacing so that she can be strong enough to have another child. But sometimes you have to convince them in other ways. So I brought this, that's why I said maybe they thought I was crazy. I brought these trays out and I asked them, in a tray bede bamona, and they said, that tray is good, healthy pawpaw tree is growing. And this one, and they said, that one is not really good. And I asked them, come and look why. And they themselves told us the reason why maybe this one is properly, healthy and good is because it is properly spaced. And this one, I said, what's wrong? This very close together. That's right. And they don't have enough nutrients to feed themselves. That is why they are unhealthy. So likewise is the family planning. Doctors are not saying that you won't have big family. They are only saying that you have to space your own children, maybe 3 years, and then after that you can have another child. As many as you want, but give the mother enough strength to have another child. And mind you, community development, people will come to you with a lot of questions. They will ask you with medical questions, agriculture questions, maybe education, all sort of questions. That is why it is important for you to network. Network, where's my... In community development, you have to network. Okay. Network is important because it builds alliances. And it brings resources. In community development, you have to network. Network is very important. You work in isolation, you won't be able to achieve what you are trying to do, because the things that people want to know, maybe you do not know. Maybe they need something on family planning, but you do not know how to answer that. So who do you go to? You tackle the problem yourself? You go to someone else, and in this case, you go to the family planning. Who do you go to? Huh? Family planning, who do you go to? You go to the teacher? You go to who? Can someone answer that?
Foreign affairs.
Sorry?
Foreign affairs.
Foreign affairs. Did you say foreign affairs? Is it correct? If there is a family planning problem in the community, who do you go to? That's okay. That's okay. You learn from mistakes. Yes?
Doctor.
Yes. Give her a big clap. You go to the doctor. But children, I don't want you to ridicule your other friend because it is important. You can learn from mistakes and don't be ashamed if you make a mistake. And again, I repeat, don't feel ashamed or hurt if you make a mistake. You will always learn. Okay. And if you don't have street lights, who do you go to? ELCOM. Okay, good. Now it's known as PNG Power. Yes, PNG Power. And also, like I said, networking is very important because it builds alliances, okay? And it brings resources, okay? Now in community development, we also practice this term. We call it the open principle, open strategy. Did you copy this one? I'll rub it out. Yes. Thank you. Okay. In community development, we also practice this strategy. It is called open strategy. OPEN. Open means ownership. Okay? P stands for partnership. Partnership. E stands for empowerment. And N stands for networking, which I just put on. Now, it is important, children, that when you go into a community, you have to help. When you build a project or make a project together with the people, help them. You must allow them to feel important, that they become owners of that particular project in the community. Okay? You want me to repeat? On open? Open, O stands for ownership. P is partnership. E is empowerment. And N is networking. Okay? So when you work in a community, you work not for, but with the people. Importantly, you identify your leaders and work with your leaders and through your leaders to reach the community. Okay? And always remember to use this open strategy. Open, the one that I just gave you now. Allow the people to know that the project in that community is theirs so that they will become part and parcel of it. When something goes wrong in the community or in that project, they know that it's theirs. They own that project. And when something goes wrong, they will be able to repair it. You empower them to do that, okay? And then you don't work in isolation, but you work in partnership with the community. Hello, are we listening? Yes. Okay. And then you empower your people. Don't let them allow you to do everything all the time. Let them do it. When they do it themselves, they get satisfaction out of what they do in the community. Okay? You empower them to do that. And then don't forget to network. It is important to network with your other extension department. In a community, you work with DDMans, okay? Hospital people, doctors and nurses, educationists. I do a lot of work with the curriculum unit too. When I need them, I get in touch with them. You work with people that work in the community because community development workers do not know everything. You rely on your other partners to help you to work together. But remember, you work Not for the people, but what? Huh? Say it again, you work? Together, please. Yes. You work with the people and in partnership. Thank you very much. I enjoyed my day with you. And I hope I have taught you something of what a community development worker does in a community. You have a good day.
Welcome, Mrs. Tenku. And thank you for your lesson.
If I can have you sit down, and we will have Helen to come and give a word of thanks to Mrs. Cook. I hope you have all heard everything Mrs. Cook tried to share with you, especially on the strand community development. There is a lot that she has mentioned, and I hope you have taken note of that class and receiving school students. And I hope you will be equipped with all your answers when we come to the follow-up lesson. And I'd like Helen to come out and give a word of thanks.
On behalf of the grade 7 Caesar Worship Demonstration Primary School and also the receiving schools and teachers, we would like to thank you, Mrs. Jane Cook, for teaching us the basic roles and responsibilities and the types of services that is provided. We acknowledge our time together and hope you could teach us more when we see you around. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Let's have Mercy to tell us what the key phrase is.
Guest speaker.
Okay, so our key phrase is guest speaker. Our next lesson is going to be on a follow-up lesson. As usual, you all know very well. After guest speaker, we always have a follow-up lesson. Now, what Mrs. Cook has tried to share with you, her voice, she didn't use much but her voice was loud and clear. So I hope the class and the students in the receiving school have heard her very clearly. So you should be now equipped with answers to whatever questions that come up in the follow-up lesson on the speaker we just heard this morning. And with that, good morning class, the receiving school students and teachers.
Good morning, Mrs. Wanagas. And thank you for your lesson.
Receiving schools, here's your reference for the next lesson. Strand, substrand, outcome, topic, materials, and reference.